Good day, good people. New Year is a time of resolutions, fresh starts and new beginnings. And in the worship of the church, no sooner have we celebrated the birth of Jesus on the 25th of December, his naming on the 1st of January, and the coming of the Magi on the 6th of January, then on this coming Sunday we celebrate his baptism in the River Jordan. Baptism marks the start of the Christian life, when we acknowledge our need of God's grace and receive his Holy Spirit, symbolised in our being submerged in water. This is called being born again, and in some Christian traditions you cannot be baptised until you are old enough to make the confession of faith in your own right. In our tradition, godparents make promises on behalf of a baby or young child in the hope that the child will mature to make these promises for themselves, which is the purpose of confirmation. Every year at Easter, we are able to remake our baptismal promises at a very moving service held at sunset on Easter Eve. And if I was to encourage you to fashion a New Year's resolution this year, might I suggest that you think of a way of exploring what your baptism means to you? The ritual of being submerged in water, reduced in our tradition to being sprinkled with water, is symbolic of our death and burial and an enactment of our resurrection, raised from the deep waters of death into a new way of life as a Christian. This Sunday, as we celebrate the baptism of Christ, our liturgy will remind us of baptism, and there will be a thanksgiving for baptism. So please come if you can, and if you can't, then the 10 o'clock service will be streamed on Facebook, and if the Facebook permissions allow it, uploaded to YouTube later, so that it can be seen by people who don't subscribe to Facebook. As we consider our baptism, I invite you to consider that faith has 4 dimensions. The first is that faith is a set of beliefs. We believe in God the Father, who made the world, God the Son, who redeemed it, and God the Holy Spirit, who gives life to the people of God. We also believe in the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, and the resurrection of the dead. Not immortality, but life without the limitation or fear of death. Now that's a lot to believe, and it takes a lifetime. But there is more, for faith also provides us with a moral framework for our actions and behaviour. Our belief system puts the needs of the weakest at the top of our concerns, and the principle of self-giving love as the pattern of universal behaviour. If God forgives us, then so should we forgive one another. Faith also means being part of a community, specifically a church community, which gathers people of all ages, backgrounds, characters and personalities, irrespective of race, culture, gender and sexuality or economic status, but recognising also that sometimes we fall short in our attempts to be inclusive. And finally, and perhaps most important, our faith is not something to be hoarded, it is a treasure to be shared. It is for the whole world, and especially for those who do not yet believe, not as an act of intellectual colonialism that patronises the non-believer, but rather as a gift for all who yearn for light and peace. We celebrate this particularly at the Feast of Epiphany, the 6th of January, which marks the coming of the Magi, wise non-believers from a foreign land who recognise that the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem established something new in humanity, which has released us from the power of sin and death. In the tradition of the Russian Orthodox, Epiphany is celebrated by plunging into water to remind ourselves of our baptism, which in many parts of Russia means first cutting through the ice and dipping into freezing waters. But undeterred, it's an act of great devotion. In our Anglican way, if you come to worship either at our Epiphany service on Friday at 6:30 in church, followed by a 12th night party at the vicarage, or on Sunday, whether at 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock or on Zoom at 5 o'clock, we will all be able to recall our own baptism and all that we share as children of the light.